TTouch, hang on, just make sure this is working, was developed over 32 years ago by a lady called Tellington Jones. And she originally started the work for horses. She had a training ranch out in Carmel in California, and she was doing a lot of research as to how a horse liked to travel in a trailer, which happened to be backwards. She wrote the first physical therapy book for horses in 1960. She competed in all disciplines, in English and Western classes. She also competed in endurance, and I believe that she's the only person to have won a 100-mile endurance race and won best conditioned horse as well, which is no mean feat. But her interest really was improving the equine athlete and helping that horse to reach its full potential. And when she sold the Carmel training ranch, she decided that she wanted to go and study a technique that helped humans improve their posture, because she recognised that many horses had problems because of the rider's posture. And she trained with a gentleman called Feldenkrais, who taught her that non-habitual movements of the body change habitual patterns of holding. At the same time she was studying for her final year, she was teaching a problem horse clinic in Germany, and she started to look at the dynamics of the problem horse with new eyes. And what she saw was that as the posture of the horse improved, the performance improved, but also the behaviour improved. And that all the unwanted behaviours such as bucking and napping and bolting just started to disappear without the need to use fear or force. So TTouch has always recognised an inextricable link with posture and behaviour. And this was something that really grabbed my attention when I first came across the work 16 years ago. And I looked more and more at the link between posture and the behaviour, and started to look in great detail at the coat, the eyes, the ears, the ear. And this work works with all animal species, which for me speaks volumes about the work. Because I know there are many training techniques that if you try to do some people do to dogs to horses, you'd get seriously injured and vice versa. But the Tellington Touch is a really kind, respectful way, and it's saved the lives of many, many animals worldwide. So when we look at a dog, we look at the posture, and obviously posture is affected by many, many things. And it can be, as we've listed here, frustration, stress, get the same patterns in people, same pattern in horses as well, poor management, where the animal's under duress because it hasn't got outlets for natural drives and desires, poor breeding too, obviously setting up conformation faults, ill health right from an early age, injury, and injury can just be soft tissue injury from young dogs playing, having a great rough and tumble, and twisting, burying themselves when they're grabbing a ball, doing that head over heels, and that can start setting up changes in that posture, which you may not be aware of until that dog starts to mature and suddenly starts to develop handling issues. Also, obviously, disease, things such as arthritis, spondylosis, hip dysplasia. Hip dysplasia, a common denominator in my experience when I'm working with dogs that have issues about being touched, about being groomed, about dogs that they don't know approaching them. Really common theme that I have handling issues along with hip dysplasia. So I would always say if your dog has got issues around people, dogs approaching it, or even you handling it in certain areas, your first port of call has to be a vet, just to rule out pain, because pain really reduces an animal's tolerance. Certainly does for me, and I'm sure for many of you here as well. And I think pain is underestimated in the companion animal, and especially the cat, actually. Diet too, is the dog on the right diet for the breed type and the outlet that it has for his energies? Because we see lots of behavioural problems caused by a dog that hasn't got, is not getting enough exercise, is feeling frustrated, on the wrong diet, excitable behaviours, driving that dog to do many unwanted behaviours, owner then getting at the dog, dog getting more stressed, and this cycle starts to continue. And Dogs that are very sensitive to the food that they're on can be really sensitive to being touched, not only through the stomach, but actually through the back, because the nerves that radiate from the intervertebral spaces support all the organs in the body. So sometimes you'll get back pain causing problems internally, and in my experience, vice versa as well. So we really look at everything. And a big factor on how we can influence posture negatively or positively is the equipment that we put on a dog. This is a dog keep fading in and out. And this is on a flat collar, which is lovely. So we're not going to risk much damage to the neck with this nice flat collar. But look at the bow in that dog's back. Look at how much pressure is on the hindquarters. That's going to create tension in the hindquarters. That's potentially going to lead to issues with the dog maybe being sensitive to noise, not travelling in the car, because we see patterns of behaviour matching patterns of posture in all animal species, not just dog. So also look at the stress patterns through the dog's face as well. A lot of panting going on, and springers naturally find it really hard to walk in a straight line. The breed type is they're meant to do that. So it's really challenging when we put them on a collar and lead, and often we fall over or the dog trips somebody else up. So it's really important for many reasons that we get the equipment right. And here's the same dog, same path, same garden, 5 or 6 minutes later, and all my assistant Tina has done is change from a flat collar to a harness with 2 points of connection on a double clip lead. Now we can help that dog walk in balance, the head's lower, the top line is going to be in a more appropriate position. It was really hot. This was that terrible summer about 4 years ago, I think, when it was nearly 40 degrees. So still some panting, but a much calmer picture. More effortless for the handler, and certainly less pressure on that dog. Flat collars can really be a huge trick for lead frustration. Actually, any collar can. So if your dog is more reactive to dogs coming up to it when it's on the lead, really think about investing in a harness that enables you to attach something to the fronts of the harness and also to the back. You don't want a harness just with a clip on the back, because it will trigger that dog to pull. That's really what they're designed to do for dogs that are sledding dogs and things like that. So really think about getting pressure off that dog's neck. If you think logically, when we apply pressure to the neck, actually the dog often leans forward, braces and tightens through the neck and through the withers, and also the back, through the back. The skin and muscles through the back tend to get tighter. And that's the exact posture a dog goes into when it's starting to become aroused and reactive towards situations. So we really need to think about the impact we as the handler is having on that dog's posture. And I was teaching at Dogs Trust in Merseyside a month ago, and this lovely lady was on the clinic with about 40 people, and she said her dog had an issue with other dogs. And I said, would you like to borrow one of my harnesses? She came back the next morning, and I said, well, how was the walk? She started crying. And I thought, do I pursue this line of questioning? Because it's either tears of joy or it's all gone horribly wrong. So I thought, now I'm going to ask her, because I'd like to help her anyway. And she said that this dog had a particular issue with golden retrievers. And as they got the dog out of the car, another car comes into the car park with, a golden retriever in it. So she put the harness on the dog that I'd lent her, attached a clip to the front, attached the other clip on the lead to the back. The dog had a little grumble at the golden retriever, but not a lot. Rewarding all the calm behaviours with the clicker and food rewards. Off they went for the walk. And as they come back, guess who's returning from his walk too? Yep, the golden retriever. And this time her dog did nothing. And her husband said, I can't believe the change in this dog. She was in tears, they were tears of joy. And obviously we can then build on that, give that dog more and more positive experiences around situations that it deems to be threatening. And this work can really bring miraculous results in a short space of time just by changing the posture. And I try to avoid words like dominant or submissive, because Actually, their words are often overused and incorrectly used, and really once a label's put on a dog, it's very hard to get it off. And one of my biggest passions is rescue work. And once a label is on a rescue dog, it's going to limit its chances of finding a home, but it's also going to affect the way people approach and handle that dog, and therefore may potentially exacerbate the situation for a dog that is already under great duress. So I prefer to call them outgoing or slightly reticent or timid animals. And these are the stress patterns or the tension patterns that I see in the more timid reticent character. We look for what's going on through the posture, but we also feel for temperature changes in the body. And really nervous dogs tend to have cold feet. And if you think about what we say when we're worried about a situation, we say, oh, I've got cold feet about that. Often the ear tips will be cold too, and there may even be cold patches through the hind quarter. And that's because when a dog is in the flight reflex, and fight and flight are really close, as many of you will know, all the blood goes away from the extremities to the major muscle groups and those internal organs, so that animal can flight away from whatever it's seeing as a threat really, really quickly. I see dogs with less bone tending to be a bit more timid, and animals with more bone tending to be a bit more outgoing. But these are guidelines, so sometimes you'll get those quite narrow retriever types with a finer head, less bone, less bulk to them, and they tend to be a little bit more, ooh, I'll just sit back and check out the situation. Whereas the big retrievers with that big broad chest and that big broad head and a great bone to the leg, they tend to be more your outgoing types. So bear in mind too that the finer bone, regardless of the breed type, is more likely to be timid and reticent. Not always, but often. Same applies to the horse, the cob, often really calm, and that narrow thoroughbred, that narrow Arabian, more prone to the flight reflex. So we also really look at muscle tension through the jaw, through the forehead as well. And this gives us a really good guide as to how that animal is going to be if we approach it, how it's likely to respond if we handle it. And really learning about dog body language can really make a difference to an animal's life, because it gives us a gauge of how the animal's processing the information we're giving it, how far we can go with the handling or training in a given moment, and how well that dog is or isn't coping in a situation. So if the dog's getting really stressed and we're seeing all these stress patterns building and building, we would absolutely stop what we were doing, give the dog a break, or go back to something that dog found easier. Because for me, it's about a partnership and a bond. I don't want to be the winner. If I'm the winner, my animal's always the loser. I want that animal to work with me because it trusts me and it trusts itself. So look at this dog, ears down, hiding in the back of the kennel, the eye really worried. And nothing about this dog gave us the impression that he'd bite, but it was a really terrified dog. And his name was Ra, and he was found in South Africa. He was taken to the SPCA Midrand, and we were there teaching Tellington TTouch to people that wanted to become practitioners of the work. And this dog had a crooked spine. The story was that maybe he'd been left in a crate as an outdoor dog and had become deformed because as he grew, he didn't have proper exercise and probably not very good nutrition, and maybe he had old injuries too. And he was the subject of a cruelty and neglect case, and quite rightly. This is Irma, a practitioner whose arm you can see. I should call her Armour really, shouldn't I? And she's trying to put a body wrap on Ra, because body wraps can help give dogs more confidence, but the dog's really concerned. So she's going really slowly, and everything about him is saying, I really don't trust people. He hadn't eaten in front of anyone for the 4 days that dog was in the shelter. It took us probably half an hour to get him out of the kennel. And he would only ever eat at night when the kennel was dark and all the staff had gone. And Irma's just starting to work around the withers, which is just between the shoulder blades, and that's where fearful animals carry a lot of tension, same as people. If you think of timid people, they'll often maybe be sort of doing little hand, thumb twiddling, and their shoulders will be tense, and they'll be doing a lot of displacement activities, and it's the same for the dog. And when we can release the tension through those shoulders, the dog starts to grow in confidence. We've got many ways of helping animals like Ra. You can see how crooked he is, his ears are dropped, his whole posture is saying, please, please, please don't. So we just went very, very slowly with Ra. And then on the other end of the scale, we've got that outgoing, bigger bones. I'm not going to run away and hide, I'm going to tell you all to stay away from me. And both dogs are probably as equally stressed. It's not that one's necessarily more confident, he just maybe has a more outgoing way of expressing himself, but it doesn't mean that he wants to take over the world and he thinks he's going to rule Planet Dog. Because really dogs want to be in a partnership and in a social structure. They don't want to take over, they don't want that responsibility. And unfortunately, this type of dog is often labelled as dominant, but actually he's probably as equally stressed as that timid Ra. And if it's able to touch them, because often it isn't when they're like this, what I find is hot spots through the middle of the back and on the top of the head. But I will also say that sometimes you'll see that in dogs that may have a thyroid problem, and sometimes it's just there. So don't go home, touch your dogs, go, oh no, they've got hot spots, quick. We need to go and help them, because actually I've seen it in dogs that are actually not with the same pattern of tension and the same pattern of behaviours that I'm going to describe in the next picture. Also looking at the coat pattern, sometimes you see a lot of hair standing up where the skin's so tight it's actually drawing that hair follicle up, so you can actually see the skin through the coat. And you'll sometimes see it on the dog's ears too, when the base of the ears is so tight because there's so much stress and tension through the top of the head. And this is Denzel. Now Denzel, I don't think, have we got a light on this? Oh yes. Oh, it's not very good. Or I'm not very good. Anyway, I'll use my finger. Can you see the skin just on the base of his ears? That's where he was so tense through the base of the ears that the skin could be seen through the hair on their ears. And this was pretty well his normal posture. And when you see a lot of the white of the eye, it often means that the dog's really fixed through the neck. And it's fixed through the neck because it's really stressed, or there may be a neck injury. So really start watching your dogs, especially as they age, because if you start to see more of the white of the eye because the dog can't turn his head to look at you, or when he's moving in a direction, left or right, it may be that he's getting arthritis, or there's something brewing in the neck that needs medical help. So again, get him to the vet. And obviously when a dog's like this, he's going to object to having his collar handled, to being microchipped, to being injected. And again, that label of dominance is so quickly put upon them. But this little puppy was so stressed that when I tried to handle him, he'd flip over and hold his breath, and his tongue and his gums would go blue. And I worked with him. They brought him to me on a workshop at Battersea because they believed this dog had to be put to sleep. And I have to say, this is the one puppy that I actually felt they may be right. Because I worked with him on and off all day, and the dog didn't recognise me at all. And that's really unusual. As you know, you start actually building a bond quite quickly. But I spent the day working with him, doing clicker training, and these gentle Tellington TTouch bodywork exercises that I'll talk through in a minute. And it really didn't look like I was going to get anywhere with him at all. Again, you can see the white of the eye, and you can see the furrowed brow, and you can see the hair standing up on the ears there. And look at the space between the base of the ears too. It's actually quite narrow, where he's actually just holding that tension across the top of his skull. And dogs like that can be quite vocal as well, and they may sort of be quite concerned about being handled around the head. So you always want to work on the areas that are carrying the tension, but start where it's more acceptable for that animal so you don't threaten him. So why do we do body work, groundwork with the dogs? Well, there's multi-reasons why we do that. They're very calming. They give the handler something proactive to do, which for the handler is also very therapeutic. And dogs read our body language and our heart rate and our respiration. So the calmer we can be as handlers, the calmer our dogs are going to be as well. Working on the body also improves proprioception and mind-body awareness. So we can also help dogs that are suffering from ill health, such as arthritis. We can also help dogs that are recovering from cruciate ligament surgeries. Because it improves physical balance, it also has a knock-on effect, improving mental and emotional balance, because those three are all connected. And if you've ever been under any duress, you're ever going through something really stressful in your life, you may find that you drop things more, lose things, shut your fingers indoors, because your emotional balance will affect your physical balance and vice versa. So our aim when we're doing groundwork with dogs is to improve physical balance. And we just get this quietening effect going on in the mind, where the dog's now able to actually learn more positive behaviours, because an animal that's under stress can't retain any information. Also really starts to develop trust and understanding with handlers. And it's great because it provides a consistency when we're working, particularly with shelter dogs, or when groomers are handling dogs, provides a consistency. The owner can be taught some of the basic touches, or the new owner if we're talking about a rescue dog. We also work with assistance dogs with my friend Marie Miller over there. So it provides a really nice continuity when that dog's going from puppy walking into kennels and then on to a new owner as well. And above all, I think the most important thing for me is it changes an animal's expectation of what contact may mean. Because many of the dogs that we see and work with have had very unpleasant experiences in the past. And obviously, because of the effect it has on behaviour, we increase the animal's chances of finding a home as well. So what do we look for? We look at the habits. Does it always sit on the same hip? Does it always lie on the same side? And think, if it's only lying on the left side, every time that dog gets up or goes to lie down, it's starting to build muscle unevenly through the left and right side of the body. Same in humans, we always cross the same leg. And again, that's actually going to start changing the angle of our pelvis, and as we age, it's actually going to cause more of a problem. Same for the dog. We look at the body language too, and a dog that's starting to become unsure or is feeling a bit threatened will offer a lot of body language signals, such as licking the lips, sliding the eyes, maybe scratching the neck, yawning, rolling the eye up, or lifting the head, or turning the head. And all of those need to be taken in the context with which it's happening, because a dog will also lip lick if you're about to offer it a yummy biscuit. But you want to then look at the eyes. Are they bright and keen? Are the ears forward? And is the dog getting really excited? Or are the ears dropped and the dog starting to go, please stay away? And rolling on the back is a big one. And often a dog will roll on the back, not for you to tickle its tummy, but to say, I actually can't cope with what you're doing, please stop. And children in particular need to be aware of that, because I've heard many times of people being bitten when they've gone to tickle the dog's tummy, because the human didn't understand. The dog was saying, please leave me alone. Also, they'll do it as a bit of a default behaviour. If you're stroking them on the back or going to pat them on the head, the dog will roll on its back, because actually it doesn't want you to have contact on those parts of its body. And as the dogs become calmer and feel safer around human contact, the rolling on the back starts to diminish, which really does tell me the dog doesn't want its tummy tickled. Even if it doesn't react badly when you go to tickle the tummy, it really is saying, can't cope, please stop. We have it too. We yawn when we're relaxing, but we also yawn when we're getting a little bit stressed. If you're ever in a live studio, you'll see a lot of people yawning before they go live in front of that camera. And we also watch people getting nervous. They'll start scratching. Same for the dog, because you do get little sensations through the nervous system. They're legitimate, but it's to do with rising stress levels. So it's really interesting watching dogs, and I urge you to go home and look at your friends' dogs and your own dogs and dogs in the park, because the more you look, the more you're going to see. Also look at the coat, and I'll go through that in a minute, but the coat and the lie of the coat and the colour of the coat will also give you a lot of information about how that animal feels. And this is George. And I just want to point out the hair sticking up on his neck. And when he was born, his right ear was much higher than the other ear. And that was to do with problems through his neck. And not surprisingly, George didn't like being handled around the neck. So he came home with me on foster with a sibling, because again, that could be a dominant dog, but actually he was really uncomfortable through the neck. And also be aware of where the behaviour starts. Can you see okay over there? Can you see? I'm stroking this little dog from Japan through the middle of the back, and we're starting that reflex of kicking, which is actually linked to tension. And if I did ignore it for the sake of a photograph, but I had worked with this dog for a little bit, so I knew he was going to be okay. The dog has to escalate his language and turn round. And if I'd continued, he could have then put his mouth on my hand and said, "I've told you." And not that I want dogs to bite, I don't think it's acceptable, but I totally understand why it happens. Because when you actually watch the dog saying, "Oh, not sure, a little bit tense," starting that little reflex action, "Oh," feels really uncomfortable to me. And these are just some of the patterns you'll get in the coat when it's changing. Look for dry, rough, coarse, scurfy hair, greasy hair too. And even in a black coat where there's a lot of tension in the skin, that hair will go grey, may go fluffy, there may also be scurf present. And look at areas that are slow to shed, because that's an indicator of tight skin as well. Also look for white lines if it's not a natural part of that dog's colouring, because that can be indicative of an old injury. And this can really help you really understand dogs if you have to handle dogs that you don't know very well. I was working in Dogs Trust in West Calder, and they brought me this dog that was called Unpredictable, and he had black patch in the middle of his back, and either side of the spine were two areas where that coat was very fluffy. And I started stroking the dog with the back of my fingers, slowly introducing contact very calmly. And as I came to those areas where the coat had changed colour, the dog's posture and behaviour started to change. And as I moved away, the dog relaxed again. So in my opinion, I think that dog was probably very predictable, because I'm sure when people were handling him around the neck, the dog was fine. But if other people went up and handled him through the back, that's when he responded. And they just hadn't seen that there was a pattern. And by the end of the day, I could work all over his body, and we were starting to make progress with other people coming up and handling him as well, because we knew what the problem area was, worked on the areas where the dog was okay, and just started sort of sneaking a few touches into that area where the coat had changed texture and mobility of the skin as well. Also look for swirls and curls. Feather swirls that are starting to appear on your dog's stifle may be indicative of a cruciate ligament problem coming later on. Curls and swirls in the coat also may be part of the natural pattern, but as you start doing body work on them, they may change to actually gentle waves in the coat. Most difficult dogs that I see have got quite significant changes through the coat. And this dog is a competition dog, and he suddenly went off the boil a bit. But look at how the coat in the middle of the back's changed. It's a complete square where the hair's standing up. And because somebody that was working with this dog knew about that, the dog actually went to the vet, got checked out, got appropriate treatment, because he did have discomfort in the back. This is a dog, you can see the white lines coming up through the hips. Can you see that? Sign of probable injury to the pelvis. Dog didn't like noises, link between hindquarter tension and noise phobia. As we worked with the dog, the owner then went on to actually become a practitioner. The white lines started to disappear. They may always be there a little bit, but I'd never seen that in a dog before. I see it in horses, but that was the first dog. And if I hadn't really been into looking at coat patterns, I probably would have missed that, and she hadn't noticed it either. And this is a boxer, and I don't know if you can see in this picture, there's a feather swirl. They look like heads of wheat, where their hair's going off either side like a feather. And this appeared after the dog had surgery on his foot. And he's only got it on one side. So it can be a great indicator of something either having happened or about to happen. And this is a dog that has similar coat to the one I was saying about in Dogs Trust. You can see these discs, 3 discs of dry, grey hair on a black coat, and also around the base of the tail, and this is the hindquarters. And this dog was really stiff through the hindquarters. So again, this was a rescue dog, maybe an area I wouldn't want to start touching the dog, because I want to build that bond, not frighten him, and above all, not hurt him as well. So the body work is a system of really gentle movements and touches that we do on and with the body, and it's hard to explain them because they're so light, they seem to be really ineffective. And when I first heard about the work, because my partner filming in Los Angeles at FOMI told me about this amazing woman that was doing these gentle circles on a dog's body, and I have to confess, like Bill, I was really sceptical. But when we started working with our little gorgeous puppy George, just softening his jaw, his attitude to being handled around the neck and face changed. He's now, I think, 4 or 5 years old. He's still in the original home I placed him in. And you really start to bring about huge changes really quickly. And this was a dog at Battersea. Her name was Holly. And look at the lines through her muzzle. Look at the tension through the top of her head. Tension through the ears. She has got a slip lead on, so we want to change that as well. And we had just a few minutes. I was there just getting pictures for one of my books. And this is the same dog. A few minutes later, we've changed to a double connected lead, and Tina's starting to initiate contact with the back of the hand. Way less threatening. She knows we're still here with the camera, but her attitude is changing completely because we're lowering her stress levels. And when an animal's stressed, it can't think. I've seen dogs that are so stressed go for people they really know because they didn't recognise them. And as the dog starts to calm down, they're suddenly like, oh, hello, it's you. And that person could have taken it personally if they hadn't been reading that dog, to know that it was just the sheer stress levels that made that dog really, snap out. And this is the same dog again. Now having her ears worked, because stroking the ears from the base to the tip lowers heart rate and respiration. And she looks like a different dog. And literally, I think maybe 10 minutes apart was the most between the first picture and this one. Her eyes are softer, they're bigger, she looks happier, her ears are softer, the furrows have gone. Now this dog can learn. And we use clicker training as well, all positive reinforcement. But a dog that's so anxious, as in that first picture, she's not going to remember anything. So we use different equipment, as I said. We use fake hands, if it's not safe for us to touch a dog with our own hand. And also it breaks down that expectation, because it means we can keep a distance. We might cover our hand with a sheepskin mitt or a soft rubber grooming mitt, anything that's going to help that dog learn that what we want to do with that dog is pleasurable and rewarding for both of us. And it's really important to remember, whenever you handle a dog, you're doing something with it, not just to it. So obviously leads and harnesses are really important. We'll even use paintbrushes. We also use equipment to bring attention and awareness to that animal's body. And they're just training tools. We don't want to have to use them all the time, because it means we're missing something. Because we don't want to interrupt behaviour, we want to get to the source of why that behaviour started in the first place. So again, another really stressed dog, Labrador, owned by a friend of mine. And she would just bark, 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 bark. And she barked so much she'd get really tired and actually foam at the mouth, and it was incessant. There were many reasons why, but just putting a very loose calming band on her just brought attention to her. And she looks as relieved as we did when it actually stopped, because she'd do that in the car as well, and that's really not safe. But it's just elastic with a very loose attachment too. She could pop that off if she wanted to. You can see how baggy it is. And you can see again the stress actually starting to leave her face. It's a bit like someone that when they're anxious talks really quickly and they don't know they're talking really quickly because the nervous system is speeding up because that person's really frightened. They think they're talking really slowly, but their nervous system is whirring away. It's the same for dogs that just bark, 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 bark. That is a sign of stress when a dog is repeatedly barking. And this is just a little sequence of pictures with this little poodle to show the link between posture and behaviour and balance, physical, mental and emotional, because this little poodle was walking on her back legs. She found it really difficult to walk on her lead. She was very anxious about being handled. So my assistant started working with a fake hand, so A, she can keep her distance, because this dog came for a TTouch session because she didn't like having her paws or tail handled. Tina's got a loose lead with her, the dog's really not okay, and turns to air snap or grab the lead. So Tina just stops what she's doing, and then just revisits, just stroking with that hand. And the dog starts to calm down. But look at her tongue. Another really hot day, but the length of the tongue and the colour of that tongue tells me this dog was really stressed. So we also look at colouring in the dog's gums, tongue, the skin between his pads and the white of the eye. It will also give you a good guide of how your dog is or isn't coping in a situation. But already, she's starting to calm down. We also lead dogs over low groundwork exercises. Really helps dogs to become better in their coordination and better in self-carriage. That's really bad English actually. It improves self-carriage. And self-carriage, self-confidence and self-control all go together. So as the dog has better self-carriage, their ability to calm themselves down in stressful situations increases as well. So we do all sorts of things. We get them leading over low-level seesaws, through patterns of poles on the ground. We get them working over poles, maybe in a star. And here's our little poodle friend, actually looking a bit brighter. And in my experience, dogs that really don't like being handled tend to be quite rigid. So if we can start being flexible in the way we handle them over groundwork and getting them to soften and bend their neck and open that rib cage up, actually we can open their mind up a bit. And they can actually process more information instead of being in this rigid state of, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to be defensive and I'm not going to wait to see what happens, I'm going to get the word in first. Also gives her something to think about, so she has to coordinate her paws, so it's improving mind-paw awareness, and it means she can't go round on her back legs, which is actually going to keep reinforcing that poor posture and that cycle of stress. We also lead them over different surfaces because they'll learn through their feet. Different textures on the feet trigger more brain awareness, so the dog again moves into a better state of learning. And now Tina can start touching the dog with the back of her hand, start initiating contact, much softer in the dog's face. Couldn't get a body wrap on her at this point, not yet, it's too much for the dog. But already the changes are coming. The dog's now learning that human contact is nothing to fear. And this is Ra. Ra, the wonderful dog from South Africa, actually looks like a different breed of dog. He's changing so much. And the key for him was walking over different surfaces. And I'd used it with a dog in Battersea with outstanding results, a dog I couldn't touch. And I was thinking, how can we bring some awareness to his body? Got all these surfaces out, the dog totally changed. There was a question mark whether that dog should have been put down, and he went on to be rehomed. So we did the same with Ra in South Africa, this was some years back. We were able to get him leading over poles. He started to really come out of himself. The ears started to come up. Remember that picture of that dog? Oh, no, no, don't go near me. The body wrap's on. He's not shying away. You can see now there's two people next to him as well. So TTouch really does offer choices, and choices offer more hope. And TTouch has saved the lives of so many animals around the world whose behaviour was deemed to be out of control. We've saved dogs' lives, cats' lives, horses' lives too. And I just feel so privileged to know this work. And here's our little poodle friend. Tina's now using a paintbrush. We wanted to be able to work on the dog's feet. She's actually what you call smiling, if dogs can smile. I know they can't really, but some do, some breeds do. She's lying flat out, happily next to Tina, no longer leaping, air snapping, trying to get away. Body wraps on. And even though her owner's here with the lead, she's choosing to be nearer Tina. And again, this is one session with this dog. Yes, we'd like to see her again to really build up all the positive experience she was having with us, but we are already making a huge difference to this little poodle's life. Tongue, hot day, but normal panting now, not that red, long, filled tongue, which is usually a sign of extreme stress. And here's my Rottweiler puppy, Denzel. I took him back a week later. I had to go and get that puppy. I thought they were right. I thought the puppy was brain damaged, but I took him home. And I said, I will put this puppy down at home. I cannot have him going back into kennels. And when I went to pick him up, the staff said, oh, has he had you? And I said, no. And they said, well, he's bitten every member of staff today, you're lucky. And I went into his kennel, he went, it's you. Ran to me, I picked him up, dog just fell asleep in my arms, I walked him out to the car, popped him in the car, drove him home. And I'll never forget, just driving over Lansdowne Racecourse in Bath, where I live, he woke up and he was just looking out at the countryside, having come from London, having been dumped as a 10-week-old pup, signed up to be put to sleep, quite rightly I have to say, because Battersea knew they didn't have the resources to help a pup who would get worse in that kennel environment, but who also, bless them, try to do everything they can for their dogs in the care and asked me to take him. I thought, how am I going to kill this puppy? Unfortunately, with Marie Miller's help, this puppy changed. He went from this snarling, snapping, blue-gummed, stressed little bundle to this laid-back Rottweiler. He was also pinning dogs at 10 weeks old, and this lady Terry is a vet nurse. She took the dog on, I rehomed him to her. She also has wildlife, and there was a box of ducks in her living room, and one of the ducklings flipped the lid off and fell onto the floor. And this giant Rottweiler picked it up with his mouth and put it in a bucket of water and sat with it till Terry came back into the room. He's raised fox cubs. Any child can do what they want with this dog. He goes to work at the vets with her. This dog is a gentle giant, and he knows I saved his life. He knows that, and he knows Terry did too. So for Denzel alone, I am thrilled to know this work. But he's one of many. And this is Ra. 2 people now working on his body, the same session, half an hour, 40 minutes on from that frightened dog pinned at the back of his kennel. And when we put him back in the kennel at the end of the session, he ate his food. He didn't wait till everyone had left. He didn't wait till it had gone dark. And he was rehomed within 3 days. So thank you for getting in touch. I have Marie Miller and Jackie Carter, 2 of our excellent top practitioners in the UK, at the back of the room. Put your hands up, ladies. We're here on the extra dog stand, so if you've got any questions or queries, please come and find us. But I think we've got time for a few questions here. So we have a roving reporter at the back. So anybody got any questions? Or have I done my job and explained it really well? Oh, no, I haven't. Got questions over here.
Can you explain the body wrap?
Yeah, body wrap, stretchy piece of equipment that we put on the dog's body, and it takes the focus off other stimulus. So if you've got a dog that's really sensitive to noise, having something on the body that's triggering the tactile receptors in the skin seems to lower the stress levels about things like thunder and fireworks. Developer in America called Phil Blizzard's gone on to make the Thunder shirt, which is a brilliant piece of equipment for dogs that are bad travellers, hyperactive, really suffer on firework night or at Christmas with Christmas crackers. It also seems to give that dog a sense of security, a bit like swaddling a fractious baby. And for some dogs, it can be like switching a switch. I've seen one dog that really freaked out with it, and that was a dog that actually had spondylosis, so I think the contact on the body was too much. Other dogs that you have to do it slowly because they're a little bit concerned about containment. So I also use it for helping dogs that don't like to be held or towel dried or can't wear a harness, and we'll use it for the service dog puppies that are going to go on to wear a dog coat. Because it's stretchy, it moves that puppy's breathing, so they don't panic as they feel that girth around them from their little puppy coat. So it has many, many tools, but it also improves balance, and it's great for dogs that pull because it tells them that by being on their body, it gives them the information of how far on the forehand they are. So it's a really neat piece of equipment. Cheap, and most dogs don't have an issue with it, although some you do have to introduce it slowly. So thank you, I didn't explain that very well. Perfect question. Anybody else? Is the halty the same as the mouth band? No, because our calming band has a piece of elastic, but some people do notice their dog gets quieter if it is wearing a halty. And also we'll use that calming band in preparation for dogs that are going to go on to either wear a halty or a muzzle. Some dogs by law have to wear a muzzle, greyhounds. Some of the charities have to wear muzzles when they're out, although they're often used to it. But for dogs that do have to be muzzled for going to the vets, for example, we'll start with that calming band just to make it easy. And that's our whole premise. How can we make this as easy and as non-threatening as possible for this animal to understand what we want to do with him? But yeah, a lot of people do use halty in the car just to calm the dog down. Can be magic. Anybody else? Oh, hang on, just get the mic.
We've got a German Shepherd bitch who is a beautiful dog around the house. She is calm, relaxed, everywhere, except on her walks.
What does she do on the walk?
She hates, fears, has a phobia of cats, anything fluffy, small, furry, foxes. She even has to think she's seen one. And it's
Really?
It's like a light bulb, and she is, if you've seen a gremlin, she's a gremlin. I have to muzzle her because she's bitten me 3 or 4 times in accident. Like you said, they don't even recognise.
No, they don't.
It's just complete zip.
Wow.
She attacks her father who walks with us. She's actually worse than he's there. It's like he's some competition either to get the cat or to be attacked by
It's
it.
just escalating stress
just-
levels. But you know what,
Then
I'm really...
she'll calm down and she'll think, oh God, what have I done?
I'm so happy she's really scared she does that,
Yeah, she is
because
scared.
so many people would potentially misinterpret that behaviour. So it can be triggered by movement, can be triggered by noise,
Or just the shape.
or it may have been an association, or it may have been an outline that she hadn't recognised and it made her jump. Shepherds are really, really sensitive dogs. People think they're really bold, but they're actually really sensitive. And with a dog like that, that's where we'd use a body wrap or the thunder shirt. We'd also maybe actually work with fake dogs, cats, bunnies at home, but out in the garden. Don't want to bring it to and freak her out. But that's where the groundwork's useful too. If we're working with dogs that are really, really reactive to other dogs, we'll do groundwork and body work with the dog, and then we'll bring in a fake dog, big stuffed toy, because dogs read outline much more than they actually use their nose, which is why some dogs will start barking when their owner comes home, but that owner's carrying something. It's because the outline's changed. And I would also do some clicker work with her as well, and also she's probably carrying tension through the back of the shoulders and maybe through the hindquarters too. Because in my experience, dogs like that have got a lot of tension through the back of the shoulders.
She's wired. She is wired.
There'd be loads you could do. I'd also maybe look at diet potentially too, see if there are any triggers there, and does it happen at certain times of the day. And also we do mouth work as well, probably with a dog like that, because she sounds like she's classically over emotional and oversensitive. I want to see Marie. Marie's a German Shepherd queen. She's a German Shepherd lover, has many German Shepherds, TTouch practitioner, trainer, behaviourist as well. And she will be able to talk you through and show you some of the body touches. She's either here or on the extra dog stand, because I know there's another talk starting in a minute. Did you wind up? Give me that signal and I ignored you. Sorry. I'm having too much fun, I beg your pardon. Do you have room for one more question or time for one more question?
Hi, I'm doing the City and Guilds dog grooming.
Oh, great.
We have dogs in, they're very nervous, we don't have any time, like most dog groomers, to spend time doing TTouch, but I do try and squeeze in just a couple of minutes and it makes a big difference. But what actual techniques would you use to relax a dog as much as you can in a short space of time?
I'd start with the back of my hand. Very slow stroking. Very slow stroking, they've just proven in humans, triggers some calming chemical in the brain. And often as we're busy, and we're a bit enthusiastic, we tend to stroke dogs really fast, and that's actually very stimulating to the nervous system. So I would just go in and not even really look at the dog, and just casually stroke the dog with the back of my fingers. And then I might do what we call very slow zigzags, where I'm very lightly, literally just zigzagging over that dog's body. Might give a few treats, so it's all lovely, and maybe stroke the ears from the base to the tip, just to lower the heart rate and respiration. And literally in minutes you can calm a dog. We've got vets that use this work, And by the time they've talked through with the owner what treatment or what examination they're going to do with the dog, they've actually already done it, because they've done some of the touch work, they're just explained, and they're just going to take blood or inject, and it's happened. Because they're in the few minutes that they were doing, getting the history of that dog, they've been doing a few T-touches, and that animal's already starting to calm down. I did a talk for Kenilworth the other week for the grooming people. So we're going to organise some workshops too, and it'd be well worth going on a workshop or seeing a practitioner on a one-to-one basis just to learn some really simple techniques, because it doesn't always take a long time. I mean, sometimes it's miraculous. And also I would suggest doing a little bit after you finished, so the dog's memory is one of, oh, feels quite nice on my body, not, oh, because each time the dog comes back there's a potential for that dog to get more stressed if they're struggling, and you certainly see that with dogs going into the vets. We've had people say, I can't believe my dog, just by doing the ear work, little body wrap on, few zigzags, is now not trying to drag me out of that vet's waiting room. And vets have been saying, what have you done with your dog? I can actually handle it. Won't always work that quickly, being honest, it won't, but in the majority of times it does. So again, see Jackie or Marie just to feel these really light zigzags, and also a few touches with the back of the fingers as well, because it's extraordinary work. And Linda, I have to say, is truly ahead of her time, because she started this 32 years ago. And I feel blessed to have read that book and had an open mind as well as being sceptical. Hey, we're out of time, someone's waiting. Thank you so much for coming. And we're here for 2 days anyway, so if you're here tomorrow, thank you. Do come and find us.